All right, so Ramona, let's start here. You sat down with Steve Ballmer. What is your biggest takeaway of everything that's transpired, and where are we right now?
Well, Steve Ballmer mentioned in that interview that Aspiration had actually tried to bid on the naming rights of what became the Intuit Dome. The Intuit Dome ended up being named for $550 million. And he said in the interview, well, they bid more than that. Well, from what I understand from Clipper sources, they bid almost double that $550 million to name the Intuit Dome, and they were turned down because the Clippers wanted to go, this was Ballmer's explanation, they wanted to go with Intuit, which is a long-standing company, but that gives you an indication of the kind of money that this company was throwing around back in those days. Now, obviously, the NBA investigation will want to discover all of the documents that prove that, or Steve Ballmer said this is provably false. He referenced an email that he says from November of 2021 where he introduced Kawhi Leonard to this company at Aspiration's request. Well, they'll want to see that email and other emails. They'll want to see everyone's cell phones. And so we are at the beginning of a very, very long process.
Okay, so I mentioned a second ago you sat down with Steve Ballmer for SportsCenter. Let's take a listen and a look at that real quick.
They did request to be introduced to Kawhi. Under the rules, we can introduce our sponsors to our athletes. We just can't be involved. We made an introduction that was in early November, well past when all of this happens. We had a chance recently to go through all of our relations with Aspiration. This is where you get to kind of how you prove this stuff. We, as a part of our cooperation with the Department of Justice and the Securities and Exchange Commission, we had produced text, emails. We'd already gone through all this stuff because it was part of document production in their investigations. And we even found the email that makes the first introduction. It was early November. I won't remember the exact date. So where could any of this circumvention have happened? It didn't. It couldn't have. The introduction got made, and then they were off to the races on their own. We weren't involved. I eventually learned that they hadn't reached a deal. I have no idea what the deal was.
When you signed Kawhi in 2019, the NBA had an investigation that his uncle, Dennis Robertson, asked for extra benefits, whether it be use of a plane, a house, guaranteed endorsement opportunities. And at the end of that investigation, you were cleared of wrongdoing, but they left open by saying if any new information comes to light, they would reopen that. So since 2019, has Dennis Robertson asked you for any other benefits that would be in violation of the league rules?
They know the rules. They, meaning Kawhi and his representatives, including his uncle. We know the rules, and if anything's not clear, we remind ourselves what the rules are, and we make absolutely clear we're going to abide by those rules, and they understand them as well, and it's important for them to abide by them, which they have.
If this story had come out about another team, another owner, how would you feel about it?
I'd want the league to investigate, take it seriously. Like I said earlier, the salary cap circumvention rules are important for the league, and I'd want the league to investigate.
And just so we're clear, you never directed anyone from Aspiration to do an endorsement deal with Kawhi Leonard?
No, I didn't. And more importantly, we, the Clippers, did not. We didn't give them direction. We made an introduction as is appropriate under the rules. A lot of sponsors do like to, they call it activate, by doing something also with players. We made the introduction, and that was that.
How do you the Board of Governors meeting is in a few days. How do you think your fellow owners are going to approach this?
I don't know. I hope they'll have faith and confidence in me, the folks who've gotten to know me, but I can't predict.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Ramon. Really
time.
appreciate the opportunity to talk about what we've done and express, I guess, some of the anger I'm feeling about what's going on. And I also feel some sadness for our employees. I'm mad, but I'm also sad that they're going through this as well as our staff and our fans.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks.
All right, Ramona, anything to add to that?
Well, this is an interview where you ask a yes or no question. You're not really supposed to do yes or no, but the question on Kawhi Leonard's uncle, Dennis Robertson, had he ever asked you for more extra benefits, was a yes or no question, and there was not a no. I mean, eventually they got to we have to abide by the rules, but I think that was an interesting answer. And it's interesting also in that there was a Toronto Star report that came out over the weekend by Bruce Arthur, and it said at one point during their free agent recruitment, Dennis Robertson had asked for shares in the Toronto Maple Leafs and was told, no, you can't do that because that's part of
they own both teams. Yeah.
And so I thought that was this obviously has come up before. We've had investigations on this before, and here we go again. And that's been an issue with Kawhi Leonard ever dating back to his San Antonio days.
Channing, what are your thoughts on all this?
Honestly, I think you got to ask. Like, you really got to ask. For a guy like Kawhi Leonard, I think he, as far as I know, he lives in San Diego. So it's like, hey, can I take the helicopter to go visit my family on these off days? Can I go see this? It's your agent's job to ask these uncomfortable questions away from Kawhi. And at the end of the day, you know, looking at Steve Ballmer, is the juice worth the squeeze to go through all this, have all this paperwork? It just doesn't make sense. You have a new arena. You're trying to get your team into to be a contender. You're doing all these things that are billion-dollar checks. What is that $28 million really over whatever contract that is? That's not worth like destroying your team. And you see his enthusiasm. He's probably the most enthusiastic owner. Why would he go behind just to leave a paper trail like this? It just doesn't make sense. It seems too sloppy.
I think we have to look at what parts of this story are legitimate and concerning when it comes to the Clippers, and then what parts of this story are actually common business practice in the NBA. Let's talk about, obviously, the Aspiration Company having a deal with the Clippers and then having a separate deal with Kawhi Leonard. Well, I can tell you that Crypto.com has a deal with the Sixers. Afterwards, they had a deal with Joel Embiid as the face of the investment. You can say the same thing for Robinhood with the Washington Wizards and Alex Sarr subsequent after that. How about Chime? The Mavericks had the deal as an organization. Later on, Cooper Flagg, an individual deal. So that's common business practice. Beyond that, the question mark is, was this a normal level of tampering, or was this super concerning salary cap circumvention? I was told by a Clippers source that we recognize regular tampering to be like a speeding ticket. Salary cap circumvention is a red line. That's a murder charge, is what the source told to me. And so there is a belief within the Clippers right now that they are welcoming the league's investigation. They are glad to have professionals be able to review the documents that, as Ballmer told Ramona, they've already prepared for the DOJ investigation. And, you know, we could say that Ballmer told us that he was hurt and that he was angry. He may be a little embarrassed as well, too, because he did bring this company deal to the table, maybe didn't vet them enough. When we start talking about the numbers that are being thrown around, not just this purported Kawhi Leonard contract being, you know, a big number, the $330 million to begin with was a big number.
Well, they were on their jersey patch, and I think that
they never made it there, right?
I think they never quite. Very soon after they made these deals, the company starts to fall apart.
Right. Yeah. Let's welcome in senior writer and Scape, David Dennis Jr. How do you feel about all this, David?
Look, this has the potential to be the biggest thing that Adam Silver's had to deal with probably since the bubble. When you think about all the moving parts that you have going on here, you already have a court of public opinion based on after watching Pablo Torre's investigation, who believes that there was something that happened untoward either with Ballmer or the Clippers or Kawhi or Uncle Dennis. You have a governor's meeting coming up where you have owners who are going to be asking questions about, is the guy the 1% of the 1%, and Steve Ballmer, did he do something to circumvent the rules? They're going to have a lot of those questions. And then on the other hand, on the other side of this, you got Ballmer himself, who has endless resources, who is going to demand that there be actual substantial, not circumstantial evidence in order to do something about this, because he's going to fight, as we saw with that interview with Ramona. And so this is all centered around, let's not forget, Intuit Arena, a place that's hosting an all-star game. So there's so many moving parts and so many things that you have to get right and needles that you have to thread if you're Adam Silver to finally get to the bottom of this. Because this is not the Joe Smith situation. There's not a smoking gun right now. There's not anything in writing that says, yes, we are going to circumvent the cap. This is about Adam Silver having to figure out the best way to handle this. This is kind of a reminder that all across these leagues, NBA, MLB, NFL, that when they try to be judge, jury, and executioner, they often come up short in trying to actually get to the bottom of these things. Adam Silver has a tough task in front of him to figure out a very complicated situation.
Well, and to that point, David, and what I'll say is this, and I'll ask you guys this isn't a court of law when it comes to the NBA. There doesn't need to be a quote-unquote smoking gun per se. The company aspiration is being investigated by the DOJ and the federal government, et cetera. That's a separate thing. But Adam Silver doesn't need that. They're launching their own investigation at the moment, and there doesn't need to be the quote-unquote smoking gun. So how does this potentially play out?
Well, I'll tell you this. I remember from the last Clipper ownership scandal, which was the Donald Sterling scandal.
Right.
Somebody had told me, the only person who can hold other owners accountable are owners.
Right.
And that is Adam Silver's boss are the owners. And I think that Board of Governors meeting will be very interesting in New York. I've talked to a couple owners since the story came out last week on Pablo's podcast, and then since the interview that we did on Thursday night. And people are just they want to know more. Obviously, I mean, Steve Ballmer even said if it was another team or another owner, I would want to know more. But I think a lot of this will come down to how much do the other owners push on this? How upset are they about it?
Well, I would guess that there would be some that are pretty interested, to Ramona's point, Dave, no?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we know that there's no love lost between the Lakers and the Clippers, and that'll be interesting to see how they voice their opinion in these things. And obviously, we saw so far, though, the minority owner now for the Mavericks and Mark Cuban, he went on the record with Pablo Torre, and he took Team Ballmer, as he put it. So
although, if you listen to that podcast, that tune changed a tiny bit, too. Yeah. So, look, we'll put a pin in it for now because obviously there's still a lot of things going on here and an investigation that will take place. But let's get to something more celebratory. The Hoops World convened in Springfield, Massachusetts this weekend, and a huge congrats to all those inducted into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. The night was headlined by brand new Hall of Famers Dwight Howard, Sylvia Fowles, Maya Moore, and Sue Bird, Carmelo Anthony, of course, as well. Lots more of them coming up. But one of our own, Adrian Wojnarowski, Woj, was honored with the Kurt Gowdy Award, former colleague here at ESPN, and now the GM of the Bonnies, St. Bonaventure. Listen, we love Woj. Woj is the GOAT, incredible teammate. Just so proud of him in this moment. But for you guys, particularly Ramona and Dave, you guys coast to catch up on the weekend. LeBron James been racking up those airline miles this week before heading to the Hall of Fame. He was in China this weekend. There were massive crowds showing up. We even saw a marriage proposal between two LeBron fans. Dave, how popular is LeBron in Asia?
Second most popular guy.
Wait, what?
Yeah, second.
Behind who?
Stephon Marbury.
Oh, Starbury. Okay, I'll accept
He's got
that
a statue.
answer.
You got a statue. Braun don't have a statue.
Yeah. I mean, he's an international star. I was in Zambia on vacation this summer. Saw on a dirt road 2 men wearing LeBron James.
Oh,
There you have it. All right, next, Jaylen Brown had off-season